On my wedding day, I wore black, not because someone died, but because someone tried to bury me alive with silence, with manipulation, with a kind of cruelty that smiles in front of guests and stabs behind a veil. The guests gasped, the cameras flashed, and when my future mother-in-law charged down the aisle in red silk meant for brides, I didn't flinch. I just smiled and stepped into the chaos, not as a victim, but as the storm itself. You want tradition? Then watch how I rewrite it. The moment I stepped out of the car, heels clicking against the stone path of the estate, all eyes turned to me, and none of them knew what was coming. The ceremony was set in a vineyard just outside Napa, the kind of place where people pretend money erases everything. Strings of fairy lights twisted around columns, a grand white canopy framed the altar, and a quartet played something soft and expensive in the background. Everything was perfect. Except for me. I was dressed in black. Not deep navy or a dramatic midnight blue. No pitch, black. Velvet, tailored, unapologetic. The train dragged behind me like a funeral shroud, and every step I took down that aisle was for the death of a lie. Guests murmured, cameras tilted, a bridesmaid gasped, but no one dared to stop me. At the altar, Nathaniel Blake stood stiff, pale. His jaw clenched in that way I used to think was control. Now I saw it for what it was, fear. He hadn't expected me to show up, not after what I found, not after what I'd prepared. Beside him stood his mother, Gloria, and God, she had the audacity. She was wearing red, bright, shining, center stage red custom silk that caught the light like blood in water. She smiled like a pageant queen, like this was her coronation, not her son's wedding, not my ruin. As I reached the front, Gloria leaned in and hissed, "You're making a scene." I leaned closer. Not yet. The officiant cleared his throat. The music stopped. We all stood beneath the arch surrounded by roses and lies. I believe the bride has prepared some words. The officiant announced, shaky, clearly warned ahead of time that this would not be a traditional day. I turned to face the guests, friends, investors, distant relatives, people who knew me only as his future wife. I took the envelope from my clutch and unfolded it slowly. The silence was thick, electric. My name is Evelyn Monroe. I began, voice clear, steady, and I was never supposed to survive this wedding. Gasps, shifts in chairs, cameras raised. I was supposed to be embarrassed, broken, erased. They planned it all, the cheating, the slander, the clause in the prenup that stripped me of everything if I walked away first. They thought I'd stay silent. They thought I'd be grateful. Gloria took a step forward. Enough. Sit down. But I kept going. I found the emails, Gloria. The ones you sent to your lawyer trying to force a clause into the marriage certificate that would tie me to your son's debt, not his assets. I found the messages between you and Grace discussing how to leak photos from 2 years ago to smear my name in the press. And Nathaniel, I turned to him now. You knew? You let it happen? You let them use me. And you thought I'd still walk down this aisle in white smiling. He looked down, lips trembling. I held up my phone. Everything's here. Every text, every signature, every call recorded. And the best part, I smiled. The man bringing the rings today isn't your best man. He's a detective, and he has a warrant. That was when Officer Mason stepped forward quiet, as a shadow dressed like a guest holding the ring box. Gloria paled. Nathaniel stepped back. Grace froze mid-whisper. Miss Monroe, Officer Mason said you were right. They've been laundering funds through shell companies for over a year, and we have more than enough to make it stick." The room exploded. Guests screamed. Someone fainted. A camera crashed to the ground. I turned to the audience, calm as ever. There won't be a wedding today, but there will be justice. And then, still in my black dress train trailing behind me like smoke, I walked out, alone, head high. And this time, the silence followed me with respect, not shame. People asked me later, "How didn't you see it coming?" The truth is, I did. But love makes a fool of logic, and manipulation wears the softest gloves. I met Nathaniel Blake 3 years ago at a gallery opening. He was polite, measured, clean-cut, just the kind of man my mother always said would make a safe husband. He listened when I spoke. He opened doors. He asked about my dreams and made promises that sounded real. We dated for 6 months before I met his mother. Gloria Blake was the kind of woman who filled a room before she ever said a word. Her voice was silk. Her smile was steel. She hugged me too tightly, complimented me too sweetly, and eyed me the way someone eyes a wine glass they don't trust not to crack. "You're lovely," she said that first night, "but loveliness doesn't last. Can you cook? Can you keep quiet?" I laughed. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. From that day on, she made it her mission to mold me to polish my rough edges, correct my posture, advise me on what I should and shouldn't say in front of the right people. Nathaniel stood by, silently, sometimes with a tired smile, sometimes with a look that said, "Just go along with it." I went along with it. I learned to sit at luncheons and speak when spoken to. I memorized the names of foundation donors and how to fold napkins into swans. I let Gloria take me shopping for clothes she picked. "Soft colors," she said. "Nothing too bold. You're the background, not the painting." I swallowed my voice and let her paint me into a picture that pleased her. At first, I thought I was being accepted into something exclusive, some rare, cold-blooded version of high society. But what I was really entering was a trap, a carefully curated cage built from tradition, fear, and control. It wasn't just Gloria. Nathaniel's sister, Grace, played along feeding me lies with warm tea. "She's just trying to protect you," she'd whisper. "She's hard on everyone at first, but she'll love you in the end." The end never came. Only deeper expectations. When Nathaniel proposed, I felt a flicker of rebellion. I asked if we could elope, just the two of us, simple and quiet. He hesitated. Then Gloria appeared, somehow already knowing, clutching a wedding binder the size of a legal brief. "Eloping would break his father's heart," she said. "He always dreamed of seeing his son marry at home. Let us give you the day you deserve." What she meant was the day she could control. I nodded. I let them plan it. Let them dictate the guest list, the location, even my wedding dress, until I changed everything. Because somewhere between the cake tastings and venue walkthroughs, I started paying attention. I noticed how Gloria's assistant looked terrified all the time, how Grace kept pushing me to sign pre-marriage documents without letting me read them alone, how Nathaniel stopped touching me unless cameras were around. I began checking the details, passwords, paperwork, conversations. I tracked the credit cards, the offshore transfers, the company shell accounts. At first it felt like paranoia, then it felt like survival. What I uncovered made my blood run cold. They had built an entire financial structure around my name, my assets, my silence. And they thought I was too dazzled by diamonds to notice. That's when I stopped playing along. I let them go forward with every plan. I let them believe I was clueless, compliant, complicit. And while they planned a wedding, I planned their reckoning. So when people ask me, why did you go through with it? Why walk down the aisle if you knew I smile and say, because I wanted them all in one room. I wanted the mask to drop where everyone could see. I didn't just want to escape. I wanted to make sure they never trapped another woman again. And I did. The black dress wasn't just for shock. It was for mourning the end of the woman they tried to destroy and the beginning of the woman who burned them all down. Gloria Blake was never subtle. She didn't need to be. When a woman has power stitched into every seam of her clothes and every dollar of her net worth, she doesn't whisper. She orchestrates. The first time she told me I wasn't Blake material, it was over brunch. White tablecloth, tiny fork, 5 other women watching. "You're smart, Evelyn," she said, swirling her mimosa. "But smart girls burn out fast. Blake women are strategic, quiet. We don't throw tantrums. We throw benefits." Everyone at the table laughed, including me. That was my mistake. I thought she was just cold. I didn't realize she was dangerous. Gloria didn't raise a son. She built an asset. Nathaniel was polished, pre-approved, groomed to be a husband that looked good on paper. He knew which charities to support, which fork to use, when to kiss a woman's hand, and when to crush her name. And me, I was supposed to be the final acquisition. At first it was subtle. She'd correct my outfit choices. "Your skirt's a little sharp for a bride." She'd suggest I avoid speaking at the charity gala. "Let Nathaniel lead. It's better optics." She even accidentally sent an email to me instead of her assistant, an email that said, and I quote, "We can work with her. Scrub off the rough edges. She'll either become presentable or she'll crumble." That was the day. Something inside me shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. I saved the email. From then on, I recorded every encounter, audio photos, bank records, text threads. I built a file so damning it could have destroyed not just a family name, but several affiliated foundations, business ventures, and 2 political donors. But I still smiled when Gloria hugged me in public. I still let her talk over me at rehearsal dinners. I watched her closely. And then she ordered the dress. Not mine, hers. "I had it custom made," she said, presenting it like a crown. "It's red silk, symbolic, powerful. I'll walk Nathaniel down the aisle myself." I stared at the fabric, rich and loud and completely intentional. "It's not your wedding," I said flatly. Gloria blinked, feigned surprise. "Darling, in this family, everything is a legacy event. This isn't just about you and Nathaniel. This is about the Blakes, about appearances." That was the last straw, but not the breaking point. No, the real fracture came later. It came when she sat across from me at a wine tasting, smiled thinly, and said, "If you ever embarrass this family publicly or privately, I will erase you so thoroughly, no one will remember you were ever here." I looked her dead in the eye and replied, "Then I guess I better leave an unforgettable mark." From that moment on, everything was strategy. I requested access to vendor contracts just to stay organized. I asked Nathaniel for shared email access to help with honeymoon logistics. I smiled at Gloria's friends, but watched how they winced when she spoke. And most importantly, I kept listening. By the week before the wedding, I had the full picture. Gloria had arranged a quiet transfer of one of Nathaniel's holding companies into my name, set to go active the day after the wedding. Why? Because if I walked, I'd take his debt, not his equity. Grace had been feeding my personal data to a tabloid editor, ready to leak a story about the gold-digging fiancé if I didn't behave. And Nathaniel, he knew. He didn't stop any of it. They weren't preparing for a wedding. They were preparing a sacrifice. And they thought I'd walk blindly into the fire. But they didn't know I'd already struck the match. The red silk dress Gloria planned to wear would become a punchline. The vows Nathaniel rehearsed would go unheard. And the altar they built to destroy me. It became the stage where I buried them alive and smiling. I learned early on that power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears a smile, and the most dangerous kind, the kind that's mistaken for politeness. After Gloria threatened to erase me, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm out. I excused myself, walked calmly to the restroom, and texted a name I hadn't used in years. Detective Mason. We'd gone to college together. I helped him pass a statistics class. He helped me track down a landlord who tried to steal my deposit. We hadn't spoken since, but favors like that don't expire. Still working white-collar cases, I asked. He called within the hour. Long time. You in trouble? No, I said. But I'm about to put a very rich, very arrogant family in it. You want in. Pause. Then, where do I start? That was the beginning. I became two women. To the world, I was Evelyn Monroe, the docile bride-to-be, floating from spa appointments to floral tastings, graciously nodding while Gloria revised every decision I made. Behind closed doors, I was something else. I started building a case, not just of betrayal, but of provable, prosecutable crime. Fraud, embezzlement, coercion, forgery. Gloria had left a trail. She thought the people around her were too loyal or too scared to expose her. She was right about them, but not about me. I visited the family accountant under the pretense of finalizing registry details. I saw the twitch in his jaw when he tried to explain why one of Nathaniel's companies had suddenly shifted ownership to a name that looked suspiciously like mine. "Oh," I said sweetly. "Is that legal?" he stammered. I smiled and walked out with copies. I dropped off cupcakes to Gloria's assistant one afternoon. She was shaking when she opened the door. "I'm sorry," she whispered before I even said a word. I didn't know what I was signing. I just typed what she told me to. I asked her one question. "Would you like to not be dragged down with her when this all burns?" She nodded. I gave her a burner phone. She sent screenshots every week after that. Meanwhile, Grace got sloppy. She met with a reporter at a downtown cafe, too public, too cocky. She thought she was anonymous behind her sunglasses. She wasn't. I had a friend with a zoom lens 2 tables away. The photos were gold. So were the leaked drafts of the story she planned to plant. Bride with a checkered past, what the Blakes don't know. Only they knew. They were helping write it. Mason worked fast. His team cross-checked shell companies' paper trails, political contributions made in fake names. What started as a revenge plan became something bigger. Gloria wasn't just manipulative, she was criminal. Her foundation was a front. Her charities had kickbacks. She was laundering money under the guise of society events. "Don't just blow this up at the wedding," Mason warned. "We want it clean. We want it airtight." So I waited. And while I waited, I smiled. I smiled through fittings. I smiled through brunches. I smiled when Gloria gave me a list of what not to say in my vows. I smiled when Nathaniel kissed my cheek like I was a trophy he'd already won. They thought I was obedient. They thought I was scared. But I was documenting everything. They handed me the bullets. I just took my time loading the gun. The night before the wedding, I sat in my hotel suite alone. The dress I was supposed to wear, a custom white silk monstrosity. Gloria approved herself, hung in the closet like a lie. I didn't touch it. Instead, I pulled out a box from under the bed, black velvet hand-stitched tailored to fit me like armor. Not a gown, a warning. Tomorrow, I wasn't just walking down the aisle. I was walking into their empire built on silence and image, and I was going to crack it open from the inside. I poured a glass of wine, toasted my reflection. To the last night they'll ever underestimate me. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before sunrise, not from nerves, from clarity, the kind that only comes when you know every lie in the room and exactly how to end it. I moved through the bridal suite like a ghost in combat boots. The stylists arrived early, laughing softly, cooing over how calm I was. "You're the chillest bride we've ever had," one of them said. I smiled in the mirror. They didn't know I wasn't a bride. I was the executioner. I let them curl my hair, paint my lips, fuss with jewelry I wouldn't wear. All part of the script, all part of the illusion. The dress hung in the corner, white, delicate, meaningless. It was Gloria's choice, her design, her symbol of control. I ignored it. Instead, I pulled out my black velvet gown, high neck, fitted sleeves, a slit sharp enough to cut glass. It wasn't bridal, it wasn't soft, it was mine. The ride to the estate was quiet. I watched the vineyards roll past sunlight breaking through the fog. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. When we arrived, the guests were already seated. Hundreds of them clients, relatives, society leeches, dressed in pastels and diamonds, all there for a show. All there to witness what they thought would be the uniting of two powerful families. And they would, just not the way they expected. As I stepped from the car, there was a collective gasp, whispers, phones raised, confusion spreading like fire. Is that Black? Is she serious? Is this a statement or a mistake? I walked down the stone path like a queen returning to her court. One step for every lie, one breath for every time I'd been silenced. At the altar, Nathaniel waited, pale, confused. His hands trembled at his sides. He hadn't seen the dress. He hadn't seen the storm. Gloria was beside him, and she wore red, blood red, satin, shoulder pads like armor, a smirk painted across her face. She thought she was in control. She thought her moment had come. She had no idea. The ceremony began. The music faded. The officiant cleared his throat. "We are gathered here." I barely listened. My eyes swept the crowd, detectives in plainclothes, reporters with hidden cameras, and somewhere near the aisle, Officer Mason disguised as the ring bearer. Everything was in place. The officiant asked the usual questions. "Do you, Evelyn Monroe, take this man?" I turned, looked Nathaniel in the eye, and smiled. "I do," I said. Gasps, relief from Gloria. The guests leaned forward. But I continued, "Before we exchange rings, I have something I'd like to read." Nathaniel's face changed. Gloria stiffened. From my clutch, I pulled a stack of papers, copies of bank records, emails, contracts, messages, all labeled, all color-coded, all damning. This, I said, raising my voice, is the full record of the fraud committed by this family against me, against their clients, and against the public. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. A woman in the front row dropped her champagne. Gloria lunged forward. "You ungrateful Officer Mason stepped between us. Gloria Blake, you're under investigation for financial misconduct and obstruction of justice. We suggest you sit down." She froze. Nathaniel's mouth fell open. Grace stood in the aisle, face white as her shoes. "This isn't a wedding," I said. "It's a reckoning." The next few minutes were chaos. Officers escorted Gloria and Grace out in stunned silence. Nathaniel tried to follow, but Mason blocked him. "You knew," I said. "You let them do this to me." He shook his head, tears in his eyes. "I didn't know it would go this far." I leaned in. "You didn't care." Then I turned to the crowd. I was never meant to walk down this aisle in black, but I did it anyway. Not to ruin a wedding, to end a dynasty. Let this be a lesson to every woman told to sit down, smile, and say yes. Sometimes you say yes, just long enough to light the match. And I walked out, alone, with my head high and 1,000 jaws on the floor behind me. I found the letter in a drawer Gloria thought I'd never open. It was the week before the wedding. The estate was quiet, the air thick with florists, caterers, and decorators rehearsing perfection. I was walking through the main house pretending to look for napkin samples when I saw her office door slightly ajar. Curiosity didn't drive me in. Instinct did. I'd learned by then that the most dangerous lies are written down because people like Gloria believe paper is loyalty. Or maybe they think no one will ever dare look. I opened the drawer, not even locked, just heavy, just waiting. Inside was a white envelope marked Post-Wedding Contingency. The title alone told me everything, but I opened it anyway. Inside were contracts, legal amendments, an unsigned version of a trust transfer that made it clear the moment I became Mrs. Blake, every asset Nathaniel owned would remain protected, while his debts would quietly shift to me. My name was printed across the line Evelyn Monroe Blake, and beneath that liability beneficiary. They weren't marrying me. They were offloading him. I kept reading. There were notes from Gloria, meticulous, almost casual. If she resists, offer media control package. Use grace to soften delivery. Evelyn respects her. Avoid conflict before ceremony. Leverage emotional guilt. It was all there. My manipulation laid out like wedding seating arrangements. I sat on her leather chair, letter in hand, and everything inside me went silent. Not broken, not angry, strategic. For a long time, I'd thought revenge would look like screaming, throwing rings, running into the rain. But that day I learned that true revenge is quiet. It's built in silence. It's wearing a black dress instead of white. It's saying "I do" while planning their arrest. I photocopied the letter, sent a copy to Detective Mason. No words, just a photo. He replied 5 minutes later. That's all we need. That night, I looked Nathaniel in the eye for the first time in weeks and said I want to write my own vows. He blinked. "You don't like the ones my mother helped draft. I think I should speak for myself," I said. He smiled, relieved. "Of course. That's beautiful." No, it was war. In the days that followed, Gloria became bolder. She told the makeup artist to lighten my foundation, less sharp angles. She ordered last-minute flowers to balance the harshness of Evelyn's energy. She even tried to replace one of my bridesmaids with Grace. I said yes to everything, because saying yes was just the slow turning of the doorknob. They still thought they had control, and I wanted them to feel that right up until I took it all away. The letter didn't just change everything, it unlocked me. I was no longer surviving the wedding. I was designing it. I added one name to the guest list without asking Officer Mason. I made sure his seat was front row. I instructed the DJ to hold the music until I gave a cue. I changed the florist's delivery time so the distraction would hit just as I stepped onto the aisle. I rehearsed my own vows in front of a mirror that no one saw me use. And when I was done, I folded the letter back into its original envelope, resealed it, and put it exactly where I found it. Let Gloria think the weapon was still hers. It made it easier to pull the trigger. The morning of the wedding felt almost too perfect. The sun filtered through champagne-colored curtains. A tray of room service appeared at my door, fruit croissants, a note in Gloria's handwriting, "Don't be late. Legacy doesn't wait." I laughed out loud. Legacy today, I would redefine it. I dressed alone, no bridesmaids, no mirror selfies, no giggling over lashes or lip gloss. Just me in black velvet pulling my hair into a sleek knot and fastening the diamond studs I bought myself because no one was giving me anything today. I was taking it. I arrived at the venue 47 minutes early. Just enough time to walk the perimeter, check the timing cues, with the DJ nod discreetly at Mason in his groomsman disguise, and confirm with the florist that the white roses would intentionally arrive 5 minutes late enough to cause a stir enough to give me an entrance. At 10:56 a.m., Gloria burst into the bridal lounge dressed in red and fury. "What is the meaning of this?" she hissed. "What do you mean?" I asked, brushing invisible lint from my shoulder. She pointed at my dress. "That. You're not wearing white." "I'm not," I said. "You already chose white for yourself years ago. It's a little tired now, don't you think?" Her jaw tightened. "You'll ruin the optics." I tilted my head. "Maybe you should have worried about that when you tried to ruin my life." She didn't have a reply, only silence and clenched pearls. The music started. Soft strings. People stood. Heads turned. The whispers began before I even stepped onto the aisle. My heels clicked in time with the quartet, slow and sharp. Nathaniel looked like a man trying not to drown. Gloria looked like she owned the ship. Neither of them noticed the cracks in the hull. Mason stood 2 rows back, eyes alert, hands, folded his jacket hiding the badge. As I reached the altar, the air changed, not just from my dress, but from expectation. Everyone felt it. Something was off, but no one could name it yet. The officiant cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved." I barely heard him. My mind moved like a chessboard. Every second mattered. As he turned to me for the vows, I held up a hand. "One moment," I said, and turned to the guests. "Before I say anything," I began, "I'd like to tell you all a little story." Gloria's smile cracked. Nathaniel shifted. Mason stepped forward subtly. I pulled a folded paper from my clutch. The letter. The trigger. This is a letter I found in my would-be mother-in-law's office. It outlines exactly how today was meant to play out, except in her version I was too naive to read it. Gasps. Shuffling. A man stood to leave. Mason stopped him. I raised my voice. "They planned to marry me into debt. They transferred failing companies into my name without my consent. They manipulated the narrative, paid off journalists, and tried to box me into a legal and emotional corner. People whispered. Someone filmed. Someone cried. And now I said, looking Nathaniel dead in the eye, you're going to hear the truth, because this isn't a wedding, it's a mirror." From behind me, Officer Mason stepped forward. Calm, confident, commanding. "Gloria Blake," he said, voice clear, "you are under investigation for financial fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to defraud through false marriage structuring." Chaos. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped. A cameraman dove for a better angle. Grace tried to flee. Another detective grabbed her by the arm. Nathaniel froze, mouth open, trembling. "Evelyn, what did you do?" I leaned in. "What you never expected." I paid attention. And just like that, the trap closed. Not with a bang, but with clarity, with paper, with facts, with silence too loud to ignore. Gloria was escorted out, heels dragging. Grace followed crying. Nathaniel stood alone at the altar, still in his tux, still believing this day was ever about him. I turned to the guests. I was invited here to become someone's wife, but I decided to become something else. I walked down the aisle this time, not to a man, but to freedom, not escorted, not claimed, not owned, just me. And every step echoed louder than vows ever could. The first time I saw Officer Mason in a suit, I almost didn't recognize him. He walked into the back entrance of the estate like any other guest, confident, clean-cut, holding a small ring box in one hand and something far more dangerous in the other jurisdiction. People assumed I pulled this off alone. They were wrong. You don't burn down a dynasty without paperwork, and you don't expose corruption without backup. It started with a message. Weeks before the wedding, after I found Gloria's contingency letter, I knew I couldn't go to just any lawyer. The Blakes had connections in every courtroom, sat on the board of 2 major law schools, and donated annually to a judge's retirement fund. So I went to someone with no price tag. Mason had once been the kid in class who never raised his hand but always aced the exam. He didn't like noise. He liked results. I sent him one photo of the letter. His reply came in one word. We met in a coffee shop on the edge of downtown. He wore a hoodie. I wore sunglasses. It felt like a spy movie, but the stakes were real. I need to ruin them, I said. Legally. He didn't blink. Start from the top. I told him everything. The lies. The shell companies. The threats. The manipulation hidden behind floral centerpieces and guest lists. He listened. He took notes. He asked for names, dates, access points. I'm not interested in a scandal, I said. I want indictments. Mason nodded. Then you need 3 things, a timeline, a trigger, and an audience. What do you mean, a timeline of every dirty deal they've made? A trigger to tie them together, and an audience to make sure the damage is permanent. The wedding, I realized, would be all 3. Over the next few weeks, we built a case in silence. I fed him documents through encrypted apps. He verified them, traced every transaction, pulled in 2 more agents under alias invitations, posing as Gloria's wine distributors. We created a guest list of targets donors who were involved, lawyers who turned a blind eye, even a politician or 2. Every single one was placed in the front rows of the ceremony. Mason called it strategic humiliation. I called it justice. The idea to have him carry the ring's mine. I wanted him close. I wanted his badge in the building. I wanted the moment the truth dropped to feel like a wedding, then implode like a courtroom verdict. We timed it perfectly. 12 minutes into the ceremony, I would deliver my vows. At the first mention of financial fraud, Mason would step forward. By minute 16, both Gloria and Grace would be in handcuffs. That day, when he walked toward me with the ring box, every eye in the garden watched. I smiled not for the cameras, not for Nathaniel, for the fact that power had finally shifted. When Mason opened the box, there was no ring inside, just a folded subpoena, a list of sealed indictments, a USB drive. He handed it to me like it was jewelry. I held it up, turned to the crowd, and said, "This is the only thing I say yes to today." After the ceremony unraveled, I found Mason in the staff corridor, back in his badge and coat. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Not bad for a wedding. I've had worse receptions," I said. We both laughed. A real laugh. one with exhaustion and release behind it. He handed me a sealed envelope. "Your copy. You might want it for when the news breaks." "I don't need headlines," I said. "Just peace." He nodded. "Well, you've earned it." Somewhere between the floral wreckage and the shattered illusions, I realized something revenge wasn't loud. It was organized. It was alliances in plain sight. It was a ring box that didn't sparkle but convicted. And the man who carried it, he wasn't my groom. He was the only man at that altar who never lied to me. They used to say the Blakes were untouchable. Every dinner party, every charity gala, every glossy magazine spread their name dripped with prestige. Old money people whispered like it was a kind of magic. Untouchable, unshakable. Turns out all it took was one bride in black and a well-timed subpoena. The news broke before the wedding guests even left the estate. By the time I got home, my phone was flooded with notifications articles, blog posts, screen recordings from guests. The headline on the largest media outlet read, "Socialite wedding explodes in fraud scandal. Bride flips the script." Gloria's mugshot was front page by morning. She looked stunned, almost insulted. The queen without her crown, and the story, it wasn't about me being betrayed. It was about how I refused to be destroyed. Grace tried to do damage control. She posted a statement on social media playing the victim, claiming we were misled too, that it was all a tragic misunderstanding. She deleted it hours later when a leaked audio of her negotiating hush money with a tabloid surfaced. Nathaniel disappeared. No posts, no photos, just silence. I heard he checked into a private wellness facility in Arizona for stress, more likely to escape the avalanche of lawsuits beginning to bury him. Turns out, when your mother commits wire fraud, your name on the board isn't just a vanity, it's a liability. But the true collapse wasn't legal. It was reputational. Donors pulled out of Blake Foundation within days. Their favorite senator distanced himself with a pre-written apology. Sponsors, friends, business partners, they all vanished. The Blake estate, once the site of magazine covers and charity brunches, was now a landmark of downfall. People took photos in front of the gate, TikToks, memes. One read, "Welcome to Blake Manor, where weddings end in warrants." And me, I didn't speak publicly. I didn't give interviews. I didn't cash in. I didn't need to. My silence said more than any camera ever could. Instead, I focused on living. I bought a new apartment, glass and space and light. No portraits of someone else's ancestors on the wall. No rules about what color I could wear. I walked barefoot, drank coffee late, slept like the innocent. But I watched. I watched them unravel. Gloria tried to sue for defamation. Her case was thrown out with prejudice. Grace attempted a podcast. Her first guest canceled live on air. Nathaniel sent a letter. It arrived in a cream envelope. No return address. Just my name handwritten. Inside 4 pages of apologies. Real rehearsed. I didn't care. The last line read, "You were right about all of us, especially me. I never deserved you." I burned it. Not out of anger, but out of closure. He wanted me to carry guilt for his fall. But I'd only carried myself. And that was enough. There's something terrifying about watching a powerful family fall. But there's something beautiful about knowing they fell because someone finally told the truth and refused to be silenced. They built their kingdom on control, and I tore it down with clarity, not vengeance, not cruelty, just truth, and a black dress they'll never forget. There was no parade, no champagne toast, No big moment when the world handed me a trophy for surviving the kind of betrayal that would have broken someone else. But I didn't need confetti. I had peace. And that was louder than any applause. In the weeks that followed the wedding, I got dozens of calls. Some from former friends checking in, secretly fishing for drama. Some from talk shows, podcast producers, ghostwriters. Everyone wanted the same thing, a story. But I already had one, and I already lived it. I turned down every offer. I didn't need a brand, I needed a life. I changed my number, bought a new phone, deleted every app that had once kept me tethered to other people's opinions. I didn't want likes, I wanted silence. I traveled, alone sometimes, with strangers who didn't know my past other times. I stood in front of Van Gogh's The Starry Night in New York and cried without knowing why. I hiked through canyons in Utah and let the wind undo everything I used to perform. I laughed out loud, unfiltered, for the first time in years. And I didn't need anyone to witness it to make it real. Once a woman at a bookstore stopped me. "You're that bride, aren't you?" I smiled. "I was," I said, "but not anymore." She nodded, eyes soft. "Good for you." She didn't ask for details. She didn't ask what he did or if I still loved him. She just saw me as I was, free. People often think survival is the end of the story, but surviving was just the beginning. What came next was harder and better. I rebuilt myself, not into someone stronger, into someone softer, someone who didn't need armor because she had nothing left to hide. I learned to trust again, not men necessarily, but myself, my gut, my silence, my no. Sometimes I still get letters, not from him anymore, but from women. Women who saw the clip, women who were at the wedding, women who heard about the bride in black and felt something shift in their own ribs. They write things like, "You helped me walk away too. I didn't say yes this time. I finally burned the contract." I don't reply to most of them, but I read every word. Because sometimes walking away isn't about escape. It's about returning to yourself, to the girl you were before they convinced you she wasn't enough. I was once a bride. Now I'm something better. I am whole. I am mine. I am free.